Act 2. Confrontation begins in the Vermont State House, where Representative John Smith rose before his colleagues in early 1977 to share a haunting photograph of a young bird trapped in plastic six-pack rings. He described how those images, splashed across newspapers and local TV, had shattered public complacency and demanded action. The bill he introduced outlawed non-degradable ring carriers, making Vermont the first state to turn empathy into law. The battle lines formed quickly. Commercial breweries warned that the ban would drive up costs and force them to redesign packaging lines. Fishermen worried that similar regulations could one day target their nets and lines, fearing extra fees and red tape. Yet Smith pressed on, arguing that protecting wildlife from preventable harm outweighed any corporate inconvenience. Despite fierce opposition, the bill passed by a narrow margin. It wasn't a grand landslide. It was a collective refusal to look away. When Governor Thomas Curtis signed the ban into law, he called it a declaration that compassion matters. That moment proved that even small states, led by persistent advocates, could set national precedents. From there, Vermont's victory sparked a wave of legislative action. Within a decade, 27 other states adopted similar bans, and in 1988, Congress passed a federal law requiring all ring carriers to be photodegradable, like if you believe policy can save wildlife. But as our focus shifts from rings to ghost nets, the challenge grows more complex. Derelict fishing gear drifts across thousands of miles of ocean, crossing state and national boundaries without regard for local laws. Enacting a ban in one region means little if neighboring waters remain unregulated. Fishers and policymakers resist mandatory gear reporting mandates, arguing that marking every net and line with unique IDs will cost small coastal communities thousands of dollars and slow down fishing operations. They warn that heavy fines for unreported losses could devastate families already battling rising fuel and equipment costs. Enforcement remains uneven. Even where ghost gear laws exist, remote shorelines go unmonitored and ghost nets pile up in forgotten corners of bays and estuaries. Volunteers in New England recount finding heavy nets entangled in rockweed with no clear way to trace them back to their owners. Without coordinated patrols or mandatory port inspections, lost gear slips through the cracks. Environmental groups, led by the Global Ghost Gear Initiative's 130 partners, push for binding international treaties that standardize gear marking and removal. They propose unique codes on every net, port-based retrieval facilities, and shared databases that track gear movements across oceans. It's an ambitious plan, and it's exactly what's needed to turn isolated successes into global safeguards. Then came a breakthrough twist. In 2022, Canada announced a $30 million ghost gear fund that requires commercial fishers to report lost nets and lines or face penalties. That money covers retrieval operations, gear marking programs, and public outreach campaigns. In its first year, fishers returned over 1,200 tons of nets for recycling instead of letting them drift at sea. This fund proves that viral outrage can morph into concrete policy. When millions worldwide watched a baby seal's narrow escape, they didn't just click like, they wrote to their representatives, signed petitions, and demanded accountability. Lawmakers responded with dollars and mandates, showing that compassion captured on camera can hammer through bureaucracy faster than white paper proposals ever could. Viral outrage turned into legal muscle, and legal muscle turned into real environmental wins. The Vermont ring ban taught us that images of suffering birds can reshape statutes. Canada's Ghost Gear Fund shows that empathy for a stranded seal pup can fund entire cleanup fleets. When we channel collective outrage into legislative action, we build safeguards that outlast any single viral moment. Now, the question becomes, will more nations follow suit? Can we transform fleeting compassion into lasting global treaties? Up next, discover the cutting-edge innovations from edible rings to ropeless traps that may finally break the cycle of marine pollution.